Happy Thursday, everyone. Oh boy, on Sundays we do literary archaeology where right now we're reading the Grimm fairy tales, the Grimm brothers fairy tales, and discovering all this truth. But amongst that truth, to tell the tales, there are these, fantastical things that happen, animals that talk and sometimes kind of ghost type creatures, leprechauns, or not leprechauns, elves. But it's not just in the Grimm fairy tales that red pill type conversations bring up mythical creatures. Case in point, the unicorn. That's what, is that elusive woman that would be a perfect wife and mother and is sweet and isn't a raging feminist, etc. But there's another mythical creature we're going to talk about today, and that is the femcel. The reason I say this is a mythical being is not because I don't agree that there are some women out there that are celibate and who believe that, they can't get a man or they can't get a date. I believe there are those women out there. But the thing is that the definition of incel, which was always applied to men very negatively with a very negative connotation, which really grinds my gears because they're not horrible people. They're not angry people. They're just painted that way. Anyway, it's being involuntarily celibate. Well, really, are we to believe there are women who are involuntarily celibate? No. I think we all know these women are several things. They are alpha widows. They dated a Chad at some point, and now, they can't get into a relationship with anybody lower than this, 8, 9, or 10. So therefore, they can't find a man. They can't get a relationship. And there's, I think, other things going on, like that maybe they never did date a Chad, but because of social media and being told how amazing they are and everything they deserve, they just think they should have it. They should have this guy who, has all the sixes, over 6 feet tall, 6-figure income, all of that stuff. And it's just in their head, maybe even as a teenager. We hear from the younger men that they don't even want to date because of these standards these young ladies have. It's impossible. So what do I do when I want information? I go to TikTok. Not really. I made that joke because I think we know that there are plenty of people, mostly females, that are like, I'm going to go to TikTok to find the answers, which it's disturbing. And you think, well, is it any wonder that society is in the state that it's in? Probably not. Probably not a big wonder. So this lady here, she is a prolific TikToker, and she seems to be the expert on all things femcel, at least in my little bit of TikTok research that I could stand, because that app drives me nuts. I start getting the heebie-jeebies, and yeah. So she's going to give us a brief definition, because it doesn't matter. Look, when you're dealing with these modern women, and modern women can be any age, it's just this way of thinking. When you're dealing with this, you're not really dealing in reality. So it's all well and good to know the facts. And we're like, well, technically, all women could get some if they wanted to. They just won't lower their standards. And we can know that all day long. We can know facts all day long, but facts don't matter to a lot of these chicks. So, and I know there's going to be some of you guys who are very lonely and are completely invisible to the opposite gender, and you still feel like you would like to have a relationship of some type because, I guess, it hasn't the state of the world and the state of women hasn't sufficiently scared you away. It's going to make you angry to see women that are average. There's nothing wrong with them. We're not dealing with like 1s and 2s. These are not people who weigh 800 pounds and can't get out of their house. I mean, these are perfectly fine women. So, and complaining.
I get asked on probably a daily, weekly basis what a femcel is, and I never know how to answer. So I made an entire like 30 something minute video on it. But if you don't want to sit through 30 minutes of me, which I can understand, here's the short answer. It means basically one or two things. One, a female incel, which is an involuntarily celibate, which is a woman who can't get into a relationship. Or basically, this is on Urban Dictionary. This is a long definition.
Okay, no. I gotta stop her already. Involuntarily celibate does not mean can't get into a relationship, but that is like ding, 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 ding. Maybe that's the deal. Maybe they're not defining celibate the same way. Well, they're not defining it correctly. Celibate means you don't have the hanky panky. You're not doing the hanky panky. You're not having the bedroom antics. But she just said, can't get into a relationship. Maybe this is what these femcels are upset about, that they can't get into a relationship. And that makes it even more interesting to me because who's the gatekeeper of relationships? The men are. Women can say, yes, I'll have hanky panky with you, but the men are the ones that say, yes, I want to be in a relationship with you. I want to be engaged to you. I want to marry you. That's the men's decision. And maybe some of these women are feeling the effects of MGTOW land, because maybe the men are like, no, I have these. They changed their boundaries. The men have. So there are plenty of MGTOW who will, pump and dump, as they say, but are not interested in a relationship, don't want any kind of responsibilities that way. They don't want to give you any leverage that way to ruin their lives, take their stuff like that. I think that might be a clue. That may be a clue.
Basically, just a very chronically online girl that like really likes certain kind of anime and kind of hates men, but they don't really hate men. We don't hate men. We love men, but they annoy sometimes. I get asked on
Hey, what? We don't hate men, but we kind of hate men. All right. We've got more. So we're going to go to my next one. And it's the same young lady. More explanations are coming.
I get asked on here a lot, why do I call myself a femcel? And the answer is I don't. Or at least that's what the answer used to be, because I've created a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy for myself, and let me explain why. So imagine you're me, you're on a date, and me being me, I'll bring up something about femcels, whether it's like a joke, talking about my music, anime taste, whatever. And most guys I date are pretty normal, and they don't know what femcels are and what that means. So your first instinct would be to Google it, right? You want to know who's the first result on Google Images for femcel? Yeah. And not just the first result, like, if he doesn't notice it then, scroll on farther, again, and again, and again, my face keeps on popping up for some reason. I know the reasons because I made videos about it, but anyways, imagine if you were the top result on Google Images for incel as a guy. I'm cooked. I get asked on here a lot, why do I call myself a femcel?
It's pretty funny because she says that, right? But then why does she bring it up on dates? And the reason I showed that video of her is because you see, she's on a date. Generally, incel, it means involuntarily celibate, but an incel isn't a man that gets dates. So these chicks' definition of an incel is absolutely askew. They're not getting something, but it isn't the hanky panky and it isn't dates. They're still getting dates. Now, one more, bear with me. Well, one more of these femcel type people, because They're definitely awkward, it seems, because, there's going to be a little bit of awkwardness. Not everybody is smooth and charismatic and those sorts of things. But the thing is that men understand that, and they're not rejecting these women because they're awkward or because they like a certain type of anime. That's not what's happening. Anyway, let's see this.
So I'm doing this really cool and trendy thing called I'm off dating apps, which is indeed the 2024 equivalent to being a nun. Which which what makes it really sad is I swing every which way. I swing female, non-binary pal, men if they're lucky. And I've pulled nothing. I haven't been kissed since November. Not even a peck. Actually, I think I pecked one of my friends, but that doesn't count. Okay? No one has kissed me since November. It is June next week. June. And you know what? I've been abroad for weeks. And that's not to say that I can't pull. Because I can. Actually, you know what? I am a casual sex veteran. Okay? I was honorably discharged on disability leave. And the disability is being fucking crazy. I could not hook up with someone without becoming so obsessed with the idea of them. Okay, so I said, no more dating apps. I think now I just need to date intentionally. Okay, apparently by date intentionally, I meant not date at all. And I'm starting to yearn. I'm starting to yearn a little bit. At first it was for a date or two.
Doesn't it sound like, you guys tell me what you think, doesn't it sound like it's hard for me to understand the young lingo, but she said I can pull, which means she can get the casual stuff. She just stopped that because she became obsessed with them, meaning she wanted a relationship and I guess they didn't. So what it seems like to me is that perhaps she's been categorized by the men, which she said she would hook up with if they're lucky. She named every other type of whatever in the spectrum. I'm saying that sarcastically. But men, if they're lucky. And then now she's revealing. They always reveal the truth, even when they're flat out lying. It seems like she's been categorized as what Homath calls a sweeper, which is like a good time and then, oh gosh, can't believe I did that, because she's just a little nuts and she's clearly been extremely promiscuous. And I think guys have a radar for that. And they're like, no, this is if I'm, kind of, it's a slow night and I feel like getting some release. There you go. She's wild, whatever, but she's going to be a problem. And she is clearly, for whatever reason, I'm not making this judgment, but I'm saying that the men have looked at this and said, you're not relationship material. Also, is it again a symptom of these women aren't finding relationships because the men don't want them? Maybe this, rising of there being femcels, which seems to mean that they don't really get into relationships, that it's the men saying, no, it's not worth it to me. You don't have anything to bring to the table to establish a relationship with. It seems like the effects of that are affecting these women.
Do whatever. And now I just want my hand held. Just a little. Just for a few minutes. And yes, I hold hands and hold my friends, but it is not the same. Okay, I'm getting to the point where the idea of holding hands with somebody again scares me. What if I forgot? Okay? How am I supposed to kiss with someone if I forgot how to do it? Which way do your lips go? When do you use tongue? And my friend.
She's got to be a theater kid. That's beside the point. This is a reason why promiscuity is so bad. Look at this. Look what it has done to her. It seems like to me, and of course I'm the little house on the prairie, clutch my pearls old fashioned, let's go back to 1800, it seems to me she would be much happier, much better off had she married young to a man on her level and had a family and children, and not, allow herself to be passed around to everything that moves. This is the damaged human being.
So, oh my gosh, you're telling me I put in years of training to go into casual dating culture just for me to cut it off and then be so inept. Oh my god, I think I'm a femcel. So I'm doing this.
Yeah, because you get to a point where you've been passed around and used up and damaged like this, and you will be ruined for a relationship. Now, this woman, what have I been saying? We need the better women to push back against the bad ones. So here we have.
There's no such thing as a femcel. Incel means involuntarily celibate, because femcels, I don't know what you're trying to say. Femalatorily celibate, it also doesn't make sense because women never really have to be celibate. They just have to lower their standards. The problem with incel men is that they've already tried doing that and still nobody wanted to have intercourse with them. Women are not validated by having intercourse with just anyone. Men are. And typically, if women are celibate, it is because they're not willing to lower their standards just to have sex with a man. That's why they could never be considered involuntarily celibate. That's called voluntary celibacy. That's called, I'm going to abstain voluntarily. The difference between involuntarily celibate men is that they have said, I will take anything. I will have sex with anybody, no matter what. And they still end up having to pay for it. They still end up having to get it somewhere where it's involuntary for somebody else, but they are, doing it for financial reasons. That still is involuntary. Oh, yeah. That's bought and paid for. And that's why these men also fantasize about rape so much. They know there's a difference between.
Okay. Now that is where I disagree with her. I have no idea where she's getting that. That is, the feminism sneaks in there. That's why I said the better women. I didn't say the good women, because you're going to get some of that in there, unfortunately. That's why you got to be careful. That's why you got to be careful out there with, I'm not a feminist, da, 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 da. And then they drop something like that and you're like, oh, crud. But she's right about women are not involuntarily celibate. It's a choice. They don't lower their standards to their own level.
Incels and femcels. And that difference is, no matter how undesirable a woman may be to most men, she could still get sex from like most of them. For men, it is the exact opposite. So if we are just talking about celibacy, right, like an incel, someone who's involuntarily celibate, they're not looking for a relationship, they're just looking for sex, then you cannot compare women in the same category, because women are almost always voluntarily celibate.
Correct.
I hope that helps. I'm gonna go eat my baby.
It does help, but we have learned from the other women in their accidental honesty that it seems that it's about relationships that they can't have. So we got a little bit of a better woman there. Now, we have an article from The Independent by, it was a chick who wrote it. Oh, it's somewhere here. Oh. Roisin Lanigan. Why are the names always so hard? Why isn't it like Bob Smith ever with these names? Anyway, that's who wrote this, I guess. All right. Rhiannon Lewis is not important. The men she sleeps with won't text her back. Oh, by the way, the title of this, sorry, MS brain fatigue and whatever. So apologize for that. The title is Forget Incels, Meet Femcels, the generation embracing toxic femininity. Do you see this? Like, women love to make up definitions all the time. These definitions are so fluid. And I often draw the similarities or parallels between feminism and communism because, much like an authoritarianism, totalitarianism, where they're changing the definition of words, where like, this doesn't mean what it used to mean. And they do that to change your reality. And women are doing it. I don't think they know they're doing it. I honestly don't think they know. Rhiannon Lewis is not important. The men she sleeps with won't text her back. Right there. You're not involuntarily. Okay. She lives alone, surrounded by the belongings of her dead dad and her dead dog. Her sister bullies her, as does her old high school bully, who continues to harass her. At work, she's ignored by her colleagues, passed over for a promotion, and perhaps, worst of all, her boss insists on calling her Sweet Pea. She is, in short, a loser. That is, until Rhiannon gives into her violent homicidal impulses. Once she starts killing people, she's much more fulfilled, happy. She is seen. Okay. Fiction can be fun, as Jim Carrey said in a movie once, because there just aren't women that are treated that way. We don't get treated that way. We're just really not. But they love to paint these victims in stories and stuff so that the women watching will say, oh yeah, that's me. Oh, I'm totally treated this way. This is what happens to me. And it's how they start to see their reality. I can't believe I ever watched movies and television and stuff and thought, oh, this is entertainment. And I didn't realize it was just trying to train your brain to see narratives a certain way. You know, it's crazy. Rhiannon is the pathetic yet dangerous star of Sweet Pea, Sky Atlantic's new adaptation of C.J. Scuse's 2017 novel of the same name. Over 6 episodes, she stalks and attacks those she deems deserving of punishment. And you honestly kind of root for her for it, even though you know you shouldn't. There are so many new movies and even television shows where the women are the villain, yet the villain is who you are supposed to root for, identify with. It's really disturbing. I think they do that a lot with Harley Quinn from the Joker franchise. Scuse's young adult novels were once described as a linchpin in the rise of anti-heroines, girls behaving badly in literature, but today they might be known by another, more modern, more internet-friendly name. They would be considered femcels. Did you notice that, like, so much of femcel is literally like involuntarily celibate, yet it's all this other stuff. Bizarre. Let's get deeper into it now. Unlike its more sinister cousin, the incel, the femcel is a creation tied almost exclusively to aesthetics and the internet age. Why is the incel more sinister? Because it's male. Man bad, woman good in everything. Once you know that they paint it as man bad, woman good, like I said, they want to shape narratives a certain way, and that is everywhere you look, you'll see it. Man bad, woman good. Man bad, woman good. According to online oracle Know Your Meme, femcels are described thusly: a slang term for the female version of an involuntary celibate or incel, dating all the way back to the early noughties days of internet forums. I don't even know what that is. I'm so technologically challenged. Know Your Meme's biggest rival, the institution that is Urban Dictionary, is more accurate, though. There, a femcel is defined as a woman who doesn't have hanky-panky, voluntary or otherwise, but more importantly, a chronically online woman who is generally a social reject, especially in real life, and mostly has online friends, if any in real life friends at all. Again, that's mostly by choice. Men get shoved aside. Men get ignored. By and large, women don't. They really don't. Femcels defy actual definition because it's mostly an expression of taste. So it's like femcel Barbie. Everything is like something Barbie. It's like we're just gonna dress up like that and have the accessories. They exist primarily on visual-based platforms such as Instagram and TikTok, where it's easy to communicate the aesthetic that becomes synonymous with the term femcel. There are femcel bingo cards. What? Points awarded for poor posture, poor emotional regulation, and violent misandrous takes. So they do hate men. And can you imagine? They're awarding points for violent misandrous takes. Could you imagine if there were men doing that? They like to say that incels are this, that, or the other. They're violent, they're bad, they're this, and it's not true. But it seems like it's something they're celebrating, at least in their imaginations with these women, and nobody bats an eye. They get away with Femcel playlist, hits by Mitsk, Melanie Martinez, Phoebe Bridges, Fiona Apple, and a wealth of femcel fictional characters to identify with, from Gone Girl to My Year of Rest and Relaxation, The Virgin, can't say that word on TikTok, on YouTube, but that's when somebody offs themselves, to The Bell Jar, and of course, Fleabag. Although, at first, disparate examples, what unifies them all is a sort of feminine annul, a sense of loneliness or rage, a character or celebrity that can become an insert for misery and misanthropy. Well, it sounds like they're a bunch of victims that don't have to be victims. And it sounds like they lean into that and are getting attention for it. But what do I know? What do I know? This is just my internal misogyny talking. All right, back to the fiction. Now, Sweet Pea's Rhiannon Lewis will join the femcel canon. On these platforms, populated in huge numbers by teenage girls, there is little talk about real-life celibacy, voluntary or otherwise. And that's not even because TikTok community guidelines ban these terms. This is why you've seen so many video posts about SEGGS and unaliving yourself. It's not just TikTok. It's all of these that aren't Rumble or, locals. All the ones that aren't conservative. Ah, goodness gracious. You would be forgiven for thinking that that all sounds like pretty miserable stuff. So why does it resonate with so many young women? Since its emergence as a micro trend a few years back, the loose umbrella of the femcel aesthetic has continued to simmer away in popularity. Like all internet trends, it's resolutely satirical and defies logic. Exactly. But let's put it under the lens anyway. To look at it one way, femcels are misandrous in pink bows, deliberately ensconcing themselves away from men and anything considered related to traditional masculinity. Bingo. Yeah, if you're gonna reject men and then complain you can't find a man, well, sorry, sweetheart. Not sorry. Aesthetically, femcels lean towards clothes and hairstyles considered girly, almost sinisterly, Lolita-esque at times, while remaining adamant that these choices are a rejection of the so-called male gaze. I mean, what do you expect in a society that teaches women to hate men? What do you expect and that's how these girls are being raised. And in my generation, we were being raised that way, but not to this extreme. and we didn't have the number of fatherless households. And even when the fathers are in the households, they do not have any sort of say or respect in their family. It seems to me that in most nuclear families that happen to still be intact, the husband is relegated to more of a role of the child because the woman takes over, leads, etc. And he's playing the cheaper to keep her. What's he gonna do? Stand up to her? Then what? She's not gonna back down. So he just keeps the peace. But the children grow up not respecting him, not anything. And there tends to be resentment, I think. I think that's how we got here with these young chicks. They've been told that, it's safer to meet a bear in the woods. Of course, that's going to be confusing for them. Of course, they're going to sort of want men, but hate they want men, and want to be feminine, but hate it. It's really messed up. Oh boy. Okay. Today's femcels also share with the sad girls of Tumblr a problematic tendency to romanticize loneliness, sadness, and struggle. Exactly. Why do women love to be victims? We just love it. Feel sorry for me. Feel sorry for me. It's so sad. But I guess, too, if you're completely ignored by your parents because they both have jobs, nobody's raising you except the school, you're in front of a screen all the time, these kids are growing up really unparented, unloved. Earlier this year, research published by the National Institute of Health collected data from 24,000 femcel posts. Researchers used as their starting point a recent, quote, sexual frustration theory developed by University of Alabama and applied unsurprisingly mainly to incels. Unsurprisingly. Why do you have to put that in there? It posted that frustration arising from unfulfilled desires to have hanky-panky, unavailable partners, and unsatisfying sexual activities appears to increase the risks of aggression, violence, and crime associated with relief-seeking, power-seeking, revenge-seeking, and displaced frustration. Okay, women are different than men. Hanky-panky for women is not the same as hanky-panky for men. It is not a physical release that we need. It is not that. It is the closeness, the attention, the validation, all of that. That is what it is. And that's why a lot of times after a woman will have what she thinks is going to be a one-night stand, she, quote, catches feelings. And she becomes the sort of crazy ex-girlfriend type that won't leave him alone, that demands relationship, etc. Because that is what is making these women restless. It's that. It's not the physical. It's not the same as men. Not at all. All day long, I know that's true. The femcel researchers found that, like incels, femcels struggled with sexual frustration, but that the gender dynamics of sex and power made them react differently. Rather than turning their frustrations out onto the world, as with incels, incels don't do that. If that were true, there would be roving bands of incels wreaking havoc and burning. That doesn't happen. That's a fictitious. As with incels, they turned it in onto themselves. Oh, and once again, we have man bad, woman good. Look how that works. Unlike fictional Machiavellian femcels like the protagonist of Sweet Pea, self-described femcels in real life were, quote, were more interested in their own frustrations and, generally speaking, exhibited less support for aggression, violence, and crime than what has been reported about male incels. What has been reported or what is true? See what they do? See what they do? Incels are sad sometimes. Sometimes they feel rejected. A lot of times they realize they're dodging the bullet and they learn to invest in themselves and seek their own peace, protect their peace, and get on with life. So I guess I'm going to have to do another video about defending the incel, because we can't even describe what femcels are here without bashing men. And you wonder how the women turn out like this. Everything you read, everything you see, there's always this underlying misandry that teaches women that men are bad and not to be trusted. Yet their instincts are telling them, I want to couple up and have a man. And it's so damaging. Although some femcels reference their anger, hatred, or desires for revenge, this antipathy may have been rooted in their concerns about how to find a suitable intimate partner while avoiding the threat women often face from violent men, the study concluded. You guys, once again, where incels blame women for their unhappiness, femcels blame themselves. That's not true. Women don't do that. That would mean taking accountability. I'll believe that when I see it. I was on TikTok looking at all these videos about femcels, and I didn't see anything where women were blaming themselves. Femcelism is a response to the patriarchal structures that govern our society, whereas incelism is misogynistic violence that exists within those patriarchal structures. No. Understandable enough. But while it might be convenient to take this more academic reading as an explanation for the femcel's internet and cultural prominence, that's still not the whole story. It's just not what an incel is at all. This whole idea that incels are violent, that men are generally violent. No, that's not the case. This is the propaganda. And this is why women think that the bear is safer, because this is everywhere. Anyway, we're trying to talk about femcels. I can't have two sentences without bashing men. Yes, to a degree, femcelism is the reaction against prescribed femininity and patriarchy. TikTok and Instagram mean we live in more of a surveillance culture than ever before. I would say exhibitionist culture, but whatever. Yeah, sure, they're spying on you. They're not spying on you if you're putting it out there. I'm getting real mad. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, calm down. Okay, encouraged to constantly look at ourselves and each other, or to contort ourselves into increasingly more suffocating boxes, from trad wives and clean girl aesthetics to horror film style morning sheds, where women undo all their increasingly ridiculous overnight beauty regimes to look naturally beautiful when they wake up. It's no wonder then that a sort of femcel core has arisen as a reaction to those trends, a messier, angrier, more unapologetic pushback to ideas of femininity that have become not more modern, but more conservative in recent years. Yes, we have. You know why? Because a lot of us have seen the error of our ways, and we said, oh, wait a second. I don't want to be like that. This is unbecoming. And also, some of us do care what men think. Boy, that makes the other ones mad. Wow. Femcel posting is a way for these women, many of them teenagers, to express the ugly parts of themselves and the manipulative, toxic, and angry parts. And because this is the internet, those parts get their own subcultures too, under hashtags like female manipulator, female rage, and toxic femininity. They're mad because they're not being picked. I said it. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. In many ways, TikTok's femcels are merely the descendants of Tumblr's sad girls. On that other ancient social network, teenage girls could navigate their angst the only way they knew how, through media. Like femcels, they adopted TV shows, films, and songs that they thought expressed their rage, sadness, and frustration. And it created a community around those things, a reassurance that although you might be struggling, you're not alone. But today's femcels also share with the sad girls of Tumblr a problematic tendency to romanticize loneliness, sadness, and struggle. TikTok's predecessor was frequently criticized for glorifying many of the mental illnesses which disproportionately affect young girls. Borderline. Particularly when it came to self-harm and eating disorders. At the height of its 2010 heyday, the site hosted so many thinspiration and graphic self-injury images that it was forced to moderate itself, banning the content wherever it popped up. A few years ago, when it first started gaining cultural cachet, I wrote about the satirical, nascent femcel identity. Following that, in a viral video essay in which my name is mispronounced, but that is fine. It's so weird to be writing an article and then make it about yourself. Just saying. You might want to think about that, Miss whatever your name is, I already forgot. The YouTuber Mina Lee describes femcels as Tumblr Sad Girls 2014 repackage. And although it's often seen as a rejection of a certain type of femininity, it's still the case that the parameters of the alternative proposed by femcels are narrow and prescriptive. These posts are populated by femcels, fictitious and real, who are overwhelmingly white and predominantly waifishly thin. And although femcelism is ostensibly an apolitical subculture, I bet I can guess what they are. Lee's video, a deep dive into the intersection between eating disorders and femcel core, also explores the undercurrent of alt-right transphobia that bubbles beneath the surface in some pockets of femcel core because of the gender essentialism that underpins its existence. Okay. Femcels might think of themselves as ironic and inherently self-conscious, but it doesn't eliminate these more toxic offshoots of a self-described toxic femininity. Today, the term incel has a life of its own. Yeah, because you guys took it and repackaged it and made it into a monster that it's not. Anyway, few people remember its inception, overshadowed by the violent crimes committed by its infamous followers. There was one dude, that guy, that Rogers guy. And honestly, he was probably some like CIA, MK Ultra dude. You know, I can't even look at the world the same way after understanding like the whole deal with Charles Manson and MK Ultra and all of that. Like, it is not what we've been told. None of this is. And they love to bring this up because it advances their whole spiel that men are inherently bad, that incels are violent, because otherwise you might have some empathy for them. Imagine that, have some empathy for a man. Wow. But they really try to make it so women can't. Few know that the incel movement was actually created by a woman. No, I didn't know that. Let's see what she has. I'm skeptical. In the nascent days of the internet, the founder of the world's first incel forum was a queer woman known as Alana. Okay, a lonely college student in Ottawa. In 1997, Alana started a support group and named it Alana Involuntary Celibacy Project. After the lifestyle she herself was living. But as the support group grew and morphed, Alana's life changed. Eventually, she found a partner and predictably spent less time online and more time with them. Although she expected her project to die off in her absence, it flourished instead. Today, the incel movement is totally devoid of its original mission. And in a way, it's not a movement. It's like they think that MGTOW is like a movement, like y'all are having meetings. Honestly, it'd be better if you did, because then you'd know that you're not alone and that, you know, you've been put in this situation by the same type of creature. Good gracious. And in a way, a much less violent and dangerous way, femcelism is too. Oh, femcelism is so much better. Why? Because it's women, and women are sugar and spice and all things nice. Perhaps that's the only way it works. A fantasy without meaning or consequence, expressed only through fictional characters, sad songs, and memes. It seems like that is the women's way of expressing themselves, because they find themselves in movies or television shows or music. They imagine that they find themselves, and then they become that. We are very malleable. We are very impressionable. I am just commenting on the truth, right? We are affected by all these things around us. I feel like if the overlords decided to, and I'm sure they have done this, decided to, you know, take the way women think a certain way, all they'd have to do is start creating movies and television and music that all had a certain theme, and women would kind of go that way, like a school of fish. Do I want it to be that way? I mean, I want it to be however God made us, but we definitely seem to be malleable. We definitely are influenced by all of these things. These women are saying they are femcels. It is insane. You are not involuntarily celibate. You may be unable to find a relationship because men want a woman. They don't want, you know, a mediocre man. They don't want just like a roommate that has hanky-panky with them. And I think that this is actually where this idea of femcel comes from. And I think the other thing that I know that some of these women are mad about is that they're mad that men have standards. That men are very good at knowing their level. But these women are mad that men have standards in that they don't want to be disagreed with every 5 seconds. You know what I mean? They want you to be a girl. They like femininity. And a lot of these women are mad that men like femininity. So a lot of this aesthetic is ironically feminine. They're not feminine. They're putting on a costume. It's almost mockery, I would say. It's mockery. Because it seems to me that their personalities underneath are quite boyishly masculine. Not like a man, but like a boy. It's gross. So, yeah. They're constantly, you know, they're chameleons. They're reinventing themselves. You've got to try to get attention. They've got to try to be victims. And remember, in the woman brain, if you're a victim, you can't be a villain. That's why they're always doing that. That's why they're always making false accusations. Because it's like, well, I'm not the bad guy. 1, 2, 3, not it. I feel like we're all just perpetually 6 years old. And I don't like it. I like you guys. So thanks for being here. Thanks for attacking this subject with me. Can't wait to find out what you think about it. And definitely protect your peace from these people. Feed your souls. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.